Hi everyone and welcome to Red Pen Learning. This is part of our PowerPoint skills series and this is the Fundamentals course. The course has been designed and narrated by Callum Jarvie. The objective of this course is to introduce you to the basic formatting tools available within Microsoft PowerPoint. When you're new to PowerPoint, it is easy to be overwhelmed by the number of different editing tools that are available. This course has specifically been designed to make sense of it for you so that it is easy to navigate and use these tools when you're creating your own presentation materials. This course will focus on three main areas. The first will be navigating the PowerPoint application itself. Then we'll have a look at formatting, understanding basic design functionality within PowerPoint. And finally, we'll have a look at some of the tools available within the application, understanding where and when to use each of these to maximize the impact of your content for your audience. Section 1. Navigating PowerPoint. In this section, we'll consider the ribbon, right-click, and sidebar menus. The ribbon menu is found at the top of the PowerPoint application window, similar to the layout used within most Microsoft Office applications like Word and Excel. There are 10 different formatting menus included within the ribbon on PowerPoint, and each one has a specific remit depending on what element you're working on. Depending on what current element you have selected, PowerPoint will spotlight the ribbon menu best suited to your formatting requirements. In this example, a shape element is currently selected, so the Shape Format menu has been highlighted as a shortcut within the ribbon in orange text. To give you more of an idea of the scale of options available through the ribbon menus, we're going to have a look at navigating the Home ribbon. The Home ribbon is the default ribbon that you will land on when you open the PowerPoint application. As you move through it, you can see that there's basic slide functionality options here. This includes things like creating new slides, adjusting the layout of the slides you have on your deck, and you can also create different sections within your presentation. And there's more information on that in the advanced PowerPoint module. You also have basic text formatting options, changing the font you're using, the size of the font. It's very similar to the formatting options you'll see within Microsoft Office applications like Word and Excel. There's a great shortcut here as well, the letter case shortcut. If you've made a mistake in the sentence casing, you've got a few options available there for easily correcting your mistakes. You've got text alignment, centered, left or right, or justified. This again, you've got those options that you'd be comfortable using if you've come across them in the Word application. You've also got bullet points and listing options, as well as thinking about the direction of the text. We've then got Smart Art. Smart Art is a great tool which we'll cover later on in this session. Some text elements can be automatically changed into Smart Art, which is a great time saver, and we'll give you a full video tutorial on that. The Designer tool is one of the best features available within PowerPoint. For anyone not comfortable with designing or formatting their own content, Designer is a great way of generating different ideas and options for brand new ways of presenting your content. Although not part of the ribbon itself, the slide navigation panel is a fundamental tool to familiarize yourself with within PowerPoint. This panel lets you navigate quickly between slides and importantly adds sections to larger decks. We will explore this in more detail during the Advanced PowerPoint Skills course. Utilizing the right-click menu is a great shortcut for formatting specific elements within your slides. It'll be a right-click of your mouse or a double-click if you're using a laptop trackpad to open up the formatting menu. This menu presents you with a variety of options. Some are shortcuts, some are formatting tools, but it's a great place to start after you've got comfortable with using the ribbon. Here you can see the overlapping objects that can happen when you're building up a detailed PowerPoint deck. As you're building and adding elements to your slides, you'll see from this diagram that the elements are layered on top of each other. Sometimes you can cover up previous information that you didn't intend to. The right-click menu is a great way of reordering these objects to make sure nothing's overlapped incorrectly. You can also group and connect related elements for easier editing. This is great if you're trying to build out a complex diagram with different text and shape components. By grouping it together, you can make sure that stays as a complete element instead of having to individually edit each component. The alignment shortcuts here are a similar process to that reordering image at the top. By quickly correcting alignment of objects, either pushing them forward or pushing them to the back of the deck, this is a great way of uncovering blocked elements. Cropping images is an amazing tool for only using the imagery that you specifically want within your content, and this will be covered in one of the tutorial videos. You can also open the sidebar, which is the only way for full customization within PowerPoint, and we'll come on to that shortly. You can access that via the right-click menu. There's also really cool functionality available if you have an iPhone and you're using PowerPoint with your iPhone connected. You can take photos, scan documents, and even sketch from your phone straight into PowerPoint, which is a really cool tool to use. The sidebar is the go-to option for fully customizing the look and feel of each individual element of your content. Once a feature has been chosen and added from the ribbon menu, choosing the format of that existing element will bring you to the sidebar. The sidebar allows you to control all aspects of each element, from size and positioning to shading and transparency. It's a great place for you to really understand how much impact and change you can create for every element included within PowerPoint. If you like the style of an icon or image, but you're not sure with the final look, you can change it to the exact needs you have for your content. When you open the sidebar menu to format a specific element within your content, it will present you with a variety of options depending on whether you're formatting text, shapes, colors, etc. It's important not to be overwhelmed by the number of different options presented to you, and also not to panic if the sidebar looks different from one you've used previously, because it is completely customized to the specific element you have opened up to format. Here we have a sidebar which is giving us color options, thinking about things like transparency, brightness, and shading. In terms of filling your objects or slides, you can use a few different options. You have solid fill if you want a block of one color, gradient fill if you want a spectrum of shades across a variety of colors, depending on how many different gradient stops you include. You can add pictures to bring your shapes and slides to life. And you can also utilize patterns, which are good at providing contrast, but should be used sparingly so as not to distract from the audience. When you're using a gradient fill, you can control the specific blend of colors using the sliders in the sidebar. When we think about things like transparency and brightness, these are key formatting tools if you're trying to make a picture less distracting from the slide content. Transparency controls the ability to see a picture clearly, whereas brightness controls how light or dark a color appears. If we're thinking about shortcutting these formatting changes so they're applied to all of your slides, you can create one background on a slide and then apply that to all your slides in your deck, which is a great shortcut. And don't panic, if anything goes wrong, you can reset all changes to default settings from the sidebar as well.
Before we start adding elements, what we want to think about is the actual framework within each slide. And PowerPoint makes that really easy. So we have a blank page here, absolutely nothing on it, not even a template to work from. And so if we're on our home ribbon, we can look at this first section of slide options to give us some test layouts to play around with. So if we're at the start of a presentation, we might want to include a title slide. We've also got layouts here to help you present different variations of information. And so just for ease, I'm going to look at today the title and content slide. This is a really common layout that I find super helpful for any kind of information I'm putting out there. So you, just as it says, you can click here to add text. So I'm going to put in some default text. You then can look over at this next section in the ribbon. This is all of our text editing options to make things as straightforward as possible. So you've got everything you would hope to find. You've got different fonts that you can choose. You can change the size of the text. Similar to if you're using Excel or Word, these are the same options that you'll see across all Microsoft Office applications. You've got highlighting as an option there, and the color of the font itself. And so once we've played around with the text, we can also think about where we want that text to sit. So if we're always coming back to the concept of shapes with PowerPoint. And so this box, this rectangle here, is the text box within which our heading is sitting. And so if we start thinking about the alignment of that text, we move into this section here. So we've got the text is aligned to the left at the moment. I want to sit nice in the center. So we'll move that to the center. Um, and then we can start thinking about what else is on the slide. So in the next section, we've got some shortcut icons here. Now, some of them are for more of the advanced options, but for ease, we're going to look at the stock icon library from PowerPoint. So if I click here, you'll see it automatically opens up my sidebar, and I can search for or scroll through any of the icons available. If you click this drop down, you've also got options for stickers, videos, cartoons. There's a great library available on PowerPoint. So for now, I'm just going to find the first one I like the look of. I like this landscape. So I'll put that in. Again, think about shapes. This has arrived in a square that I can edit by clicking on any of those outer points and manipulate it around the screen. Get it to the size I want. So now I want to change the look and feel of this picture. So I'm going to right click. I've got my right click menu, but I want some specific changes. So I'm going to go to Format Graphic. And you can see the sidebar is now giving me that menu. Solid fill is fine, but I want to change the color of this. So we can see we're set to solid fill. The color is black. So let's change that to red. And then we're going to think about transparency. So transparency is a really great feature if you're trying to make things less distracting on your page. So for example here, I can increase the transparency of that image, which makes it easier to see through it. And so you can see the color gets faded. It is not quite as striking as it is with zero transparency. So for argument's sake, I'm going to pull the transparency up to 75%. And then you can see if I was to move my heading down in front of that picture, it's now less distracting having that picture set behind the heading. If I was to take the transparency down and you saw how dominant that color is, as well as going in front of the writing, it's a great feature being able to make it more transparent and then bring the prominence of the heading through. Another thing to think about with blank pages is that we can add some more interesting dynamics to the actual background of this slide. So the background is everything that we've not added in terms of elements. So if I right click anywhere on the blank slide, you'll see the option arrive here for formatting the background. So let's think about that. I'm going to add a gradient fill just to make things a bit more interesting. So go to gradient. At the moment we've got blue. That works okay, but we can also have a look at making that green. We can use the sliders to decide where the gradient sits on the screen. I think I quite like that dynamic of the green hint at the top heading down to white. Again, we can think about transparency. So how strong do we want that gradient to be? We can fade it out, which fades out that top color. Brightness as well, making the picture lighter or darker, is another really cool feature if you're thinking about building in contrast to your content. So that's just some simple examples of how you can take a slide from zero on it, zero content, to some simple additions like text, an icon, changing the colors, formatting the background, and that's all you need to start playing around with some ideas of your own.
Section 2. Formatting Fundamentals. In this section, we'll consider the three-step process of formatting. We'll think about the first time you're formatting and how to get started, and then an introduction to basic animation principles. When designing PowerPoint content, it's good to build effective habits that you can reuse as a consistent methodology for future projects. The more comfortable you get formatting, the easier and quicker it will be to create new content. Over time, you'll develop your own process, but my advice to get started is that you use these three simple steps. The first is that you pick an element you want to utilize and insert that within your slide deck. Once inserted, you can begin to understand the range of formatting options available. Experiment with formatting and change the elements until you get the look and feel that you think will best suit your audience. Once your content has been formatted, you then think about design and animation. It's not just about the look and feel of your deck as a whole, but also how can we use animation to really bring your content to life. As a reminder, all the formatting tools and options you need will be found within the ribbon, the right-click menu, and the sidebar. Many of the elements included within PowerPoint, like smart art, pictures, and icons, are made up of shapes. Therefore, the more comfortable you are with formatting shapes, the more control you will have over the more advanced elements found within PowerPoint. If we think about the three-step process, the first thing you want to do is insert any shape from the Insert section of the ribbon. Then format that shape using the ribbon, right-click, and sidebar menus. Once formatted, you can think about designing your content to be as easy for your audience to interpret as possible. Looking good is great, but easily digestible content should be the top priority. The full video tutorial will show you how to insert and format shapes from scratch.
When you open PowerPoint, you'll be on your home ribbon. We want to go to Insert, and we're going to pick a shape. So I like to keep it simple, put a rectangle in. Now that's given me one. If you want to make uniform shapes in your slide, you can right click, copy, right click, and paste. And that gives me two shapes exactly the same size. We'll just add another couple in so you can see some variations. So we'll add a circle. Always using that same principle of click and drag your mouse to make it bigger. We'll do one last one. We'll do a freeform shape. So this one, you're going to be building the shape point by point. So with each click, you're controlling where the next section of the line goes. And then it'll complete the shape for you. So now we've got our shapes on the screen. Let's have a think about changing the body of the shape. So what's inside the outline? If I was going to click onto that shape, you can see the ribbon is immediately changed to shape formatting. So up here, we've got all the options we need to do basic customization. If you right click on the shape, it then generates another menu with other options. If I was wanting to go really detailed in terms of the customization options, I could then click on Format Shape, and that gives me my sidebar. So we're going to keep things nice and simple for this first one. We've got the shape selected. Up here we've got a shortcut into how we're filling that shape. So if I click on the drop down here, you can see that it's going to allow me to pick any color I want from the spectrum here. So we'll go red. Notice that's only changing the body of the shape, not the outline, because we're talking about the shape fill. If we wanted to change the outline of the shape, we go to the outline option, and again you can pick any color that PowerPoint has. Now you can see that that outline is very hard to identify. So to change that, you're going back to the outline, down arrow. But what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to change the weight of that outline to make it more clearly visible. You can see here we're only 1 pixel. So let's increase that. Let's go to 4.5, and immediately you can see the difference in weight of that outline. So now we've got a body and an outline colored. For example, there might be a situation where you're wanting to highlight something on your content. So we could get rid of the fill within the shape. And that leaves us with the outline, which you could then put around anything else on your screen to frame it. But for now, we'll keep that one here. We'll change the shape body back to red. We can take the outline off altogether, and that gives us a nice sharp edge to that square. If we come over to this one, let's choose a different fill. So we've got our sidebar open here, and we're currently set to a solid fill. So let's experiment with the gradient option. So gradient fill will then give us a blend in the colors going across the shape. You can see here there's a slide bar which includes what's called gradient stop. So each time we've got a marker, you can see how it impacts the shading on the shape. You can control where and how steeply the colors blend. If you want it to be a more simple gradient, you can actually remove some of the gradient stops. So you've only got one wave of color. You can actually change the direction and color of the gradient with this option here. And then you've also got an option to change the direction of the gradient. So this is now going diagonally, horizontally, depending on your preference. You'll see here within the gradient toolbar that we've got this stop highlighted compared to this one and so on. We can change the individual colors of each point in our gradient by using this one here. So say for example, I wanted a gradient that goes from red to blue. You can tell it to do that, but let's get rid of those oranges so it's a more seamless transition. And so we've got full control here over the fact that there's a gradient in the shape and also the direction, depth and impact of that gradient. So it's a really cool tool to play around with. It looks complicated when you're not used to it, but the more you play around with it, the more you see that actually it's very easy to manipulate if you're using this sidebar here. Very user friendly in terms of the options and how to control them. If we move on to this shape here, let's think about adding in a pattern. So back to the sidebar, we've got solid fill, gradient fill. We're going to go straight to pattern. So the pattern again has loads of options available to you. And you can see at the moment that the pattern color is split between blue and white. So if we were to pick a checkerboard or a circle-based pattern, we can manipulate these not only in terms of the pattern itself, but also the colors involved. So if we go back to the checkerboard, we can then choose a couple of different colors that we want to see on that design. Again, you've completely radically changed the look and feel of this shape. At the moment we've got an outline. So for in the sidebar, as opposed to up here, we can scroll down and you'll see that now we've got that full control over the outline of the shape. So we can change the color of the outline, we can change the width, and we can also change whether it's a sketch style, compound type, or dash type, depending on your preference. So there's loads of options you can use within that. And the last one here will show you how to insert a picture. So that might again feel complicated. Looking at the sidebar options here, I'm going to picture or texture fill. This is going to be a default texture that it's got. It's currently tiled picture as a texture, so we can unclick that. And we want to take a picture, we can use it from our files, we can go from the clipboard, but for ease right now, this is just a picture we've got on the computer. And you can see it fits into the shape nicely, even with a shape with a strange shape, the picture fits in well. In terms of editing the existing shape, you can also go to edit points. And from here, you can change the way the shape is sitting. So that's just a quick look at some of the basic functionality that you can use when editing shapes. It's a really good thing to understand how PowerPoint compiles that information on the screen. When you can see multiple elements here that have been placed but left in a mess on this slide, it's hard to know what exactly are we looking at. To give you the best understanding of how PowerPoint prepares information, let's have a look at how these objects are sitting on top of each other. So if I was to click on one of the elements and then right click, these options here, reorder overlapping objects and reorder objects, are really important for understanding how they are placed on the screen. If I click reorder overlapping objects, You can then see very clearly what elements exist on the slide currently and what is sitting on top of each other in terms of the order of these items. By using this screen, you can either use it to review the information that's there, or you can click and drag to reorder what piece is sitting on top of another. It's really good to have the understanding that PowerPoint is built in layers like this. So whenever you're placing items on the screen, always think it's what is on top of something else. If I've lost an image in the background, do I need to bring that forward? And this screen is a really good way of doing that quickly and easily. There are other ways that you can do this though. If you think about the arrange options up here on the home ribbon, I want to bring this picture at the back further forward. So I've clicked on the picture, I'll then move up to the arrange tab, and I can either bring forwards one layer at a time, and you'll see how the image starts to step forward. I can also right click on the same image and go to bring forwards option again to bring it forward another layer. Or if I know I want that image at the top of every other picture on the screen, I'll right click, go to bring to front, and that will immediately bring that to the top layer of my items. So really good to understand that you're always stacking content on PowerPoint, and there's a few options through the right click, through the ribbon, of bringing those pictures to the right order. If we think about trying to spread items across the screen, sometimes it's hard to get them lined up properly. So if I've got all my items in different places, that can look really messy. So let's select all the items on the screen, so you can either click on each item holding the shift key individually, or I could click and drag my cursor to encompass all the items. Then I can go to arrangement, and I can start thinking about alignment. So I want to align all of these images to the center of the slide. So that's brought them all in vertical alignment there. Other alignment options include lining it to the middle, so they'll be horizontally aligned. And then we can think about things like spreading them out evenly across the page. So if I was to set two items at either side of the screen, and then again select all the content available on my screen, I can go to arrange, align, and I want to now distribute these components horizontally. And you can see that will give equal spacing across the screen to all these items. So there's a few options to play around with, but the concepts to think about are the stacking of the elements themselves, and then using the alignment tools to miss out having to manually move individual items and trying to align them perfectly with the guidelines. So play around with the alignment tools, but also always think about, if I've lost an image or an element that I've added into the screen, let's think about bringing that to the front. Or if I want to hide something behind other things, let's think about sending that to the back. And that's how easy it is to align your elements on your slide.
When you're new to formatting in PowerPoint, it's good to think about animation in its simplest form possible. The animation functionality exists within PowerPoint to aid in the delivery of your information. It's not about things looking impressive, it's about giving the audience information piece by piece using animation to bring elements up one at a time. If everything arrives on your slides at the same time, it can be visually very distracting. So you want to build your content gradually, and that's where animation is an essential tool. Used well, animation can bring your presentation to life. Used badly, it can be an unnecessary distraction. We're not going to go too far into animation in the tutorials, but we're going to give you a basic understanding of why and when you could use the
When
animation
we're talking
principle
animation in
in PowerPoint.
PowerPoint terms, we're not thinking about cartoons or anything complicated. We're just thinking about how things are arriving on screen as you're presenting. So if we take this slide, for example, it's quite a busy slide. There's lots of information for the reader to digest. And if I was to jump into presentation mode, you can see that when that arrives at one time, there's a lot to process. So when you're thinking about preparing content for an audience, you want to make it as easy for the audience to digest as possible. And animation and animating your information is a great way of doing that in quite a simple way. If we're on our home screen, our home ribbon here, we can see animations is along here. Because we've not selected any of the elements, everything's grayed out at the moment. But as soon as we pick a thing to animate, like this text box for example, our options are opened up. Everything here in these first three boxes are different ways to manipulate how the element arrives on screen. So you can get really complicated ways of bringing your information in, or you can keep it really simple. I personally like to keep things simple because I'm always thinking about it from the audience's perspective. So you don't want to be distracting, you want to be giving them information as and when they need it. So right here we've got a list of text and we've got points on the screen that those text elements relate to. And so we want to make sure things are arriving on the screen at the same time. So if we don't want something to be brought up through animation, it can just arrive on the screen without any animated elements. And so, for example, the title, this introduction, and this first image are absolutely fine to be left unanimated. And I'll show you the impact of that. What I do want to animate is this text, this arrow, and this picture all at one time. And so to select all of them through clicking, I'm holding the shift key on the keyboard and I'm clicking each element in turn, just a standard click, not a right click, to have them all selected at the same time. If we think about adding the most simple animation that there is the appear. So they will literally appear when you click the mouse. And as we're building out this animation, what we want to do is view the animations in the animation pane. So this sidebar, there's an option for animation. You'll see along here in the ribbon, we've got the animation pane. We'll open that and you can see my first three elements have been grouped together on one click to arrive. We'll open up this timing option because this is very important as we go through to get comfortable with. We can tell the animation to arrive on a click with the previous element or after a previous element. The simplest thing to do when you're getting started with animation is just stick to having the clicks control when things arrive. And so I'll show you what that looks like just in simple terms. So the elements that I've animated have disappeared. They're ready to be controlled with the click. And with one click of the mouse, all of those elements arrive at the same time. My text box, my arrow, and my picture. So we'll come out of presentation mode and we'll repeat that process for the other elements we want to animate. So I want text box 2 to arrive with arrow 2, text box 3, text box 4, and text box 5. And again, so you can see the impact of that as I'm building it. Our animation pane is building out as we add more things. You can see exactly where the clicks are controlling and what they will control, so that you'll group them together. Everything's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It shows you what will happen in chronological order. So again, everything we've not animated is still just sitting on the slide as you arrive. But as we start to click through, the elements that we're animating will build up with each click. So you've got full control over how and when the information arrives on screen, which is great. So the last few bits to think about animating are these additional points that we're bringing in at the end. So for the top box, we've got a text box and we've got a picture that I've grouped. Now, it's worth noting there's multiple pictures here and shapes that have been used to build this one unit. And if I right click and we look at this grouping option here, if I ungroup, that means I'm turning everything that was one unit into individual elements again. So we've got a picture, a second picture, and we've got two rectangles as well. And so from an animation standpoint, it's really good to have control of all of those things arriving together. And so I want to select the picture. I'm going to hold the shift key again, select the other picture. I'm going to bring in my first box because I want that to arrive with the video text box. So I'm going to hold the shift key, make sure I'm including that video's text box as well, and they're all going to appear. And then the very last thing I'm doing is adding the images text box and this last highlighter here, and again we're going to appear. And you can see that every single thing I've animated has arrived in my animation pane. When we go back into the presentation mode now, it's much easier for us to see what the information is as we're getting started. We've got the introduction to the topic, and then as I click through, we get a further level of detail with each animated point that I'm bringing in. You see the image comes up at the bottom there, and our final point. And so immediately we've gone from overwhelming information to piece by piece adding elements in. Now, I've used the simplest animation options available. I've stuck to one idea and I've consistently used that throughout the slide. Animation is something that it takes practice to get good at it, to get comfortable with it, and to get to the point where you can use it to your advantage in your presentations. But if you master it, it will really set you apart from other presenters who are using PowerPoint. Now it's time to try formatting your own shapes. Please go to Activity Sheet 1 and complete the exercise.